Good evening, over the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas G. It was almost 2 decades ago when 24 Kashmiri Pandits were killed in Nadimarg village near Shopia in Jammu and Kashmir. The village had a total of 11 families with 52 people. Almost half of them were massacred by terrorists who entered wearing military fatigues and lined up the villages before shooting them dead in cold blood. Now, as the Jammu and Kashmir High Court decides to reopen the case, the hopes of hapless Hindus who had been left to fend for themselves have also been revived, along with the painful memories of the massacre. Times Now has traced the victims' families. Hear them narrate the horror of that night and how they were betrayed by those who were meant to shield them.
रात के 3 बजे थे और हम जो गाय जहाँ पे रखते वहाँ पे मम्मी के साथ मैं और मेरा भाई ऐसे दोनों को पकड़ा हुआ था, मुंह पे हाथ रख के ताकि कुछ बोले ना, और ऐसे ही 4-5 बजे तक वहाँ रुका गया था। बुरा लगता है और गुस्सा भी आता है कि ऐसा हुआ था और किसी ने कुछ किया नहीं। जैसे उन्होंने बताया कि मेरे पापा थे जो पुलिस वहाँ चौकी गए थे, लेकिन उनको बजाय पुलिस फोर्स भेजने के उनको भी जेल में बंद कर दिया कि आप मत जाओ, हम भी नहीं जा रहे।
और मेरे मामा का लड़का वो उसी वक्त पुलिस चौकी में चला गया। पुलिस उनको बताया हमें मार रहे हैं, उधर उग्रवादी आ गए, हमें मार रहे हैं। पुलिस वालों ने उनको बिठा के रखा, बोला इस वक्त हम नहीं जाएंगे, कुछ भी हो हम सवेरे जाएंगे।
You've heard the pain of those who have gone through so much of torture. Now Times Now shows you who is to blame for this hurt and injustice. Times Now has accessed the verdict given by the Shopia court in 2009, where the judge made scathing observations, putting the police in the dock, detailing how 68 times the police failed to produce accused number 1, Zia Mustafa. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 68 times the accused number 1 was not produced by the police in this very case in the court. What's even more shocking is the reason cited by the police, that there was a lack of manpower, a lack of security guards to protect the accused. So who was in power at that time? Who in the political dispensation could not ensure that the man who was in police custody could not make it to court? Have you heard of anything more bizarre? It was Congress's Ghulam Nabi Azad, followed by Omar Abdullah as the chief minister. And if you thought the Muftis could be absolved of being apathetic, hear this.
कश्मीरी पंडितों के ऊपर कहाँ है हीलिंग टच की पॉलिसी? कहीं नहीं। उसके बाद जब हम 14 अप्रैल को जम्मू आए, उसके बाद यहाँ उन्होंने अपना रवैया कुछ और दिखाया। तो फिर हमारे में से एक एजेंट से बंदे थे, उन्होंने बोला आप सीएम की हैसियत से नहीं हम आपको बोल रहे हैं, आप सीएम हो या गवर्नमेंट में हो, इस वक्त हम एक पड़ोसी की हैसियत से आपको बोल रहे हैं, क्योंकि आप वहाँ पे कश्मीर में हमारे पड़ोसी रहे हो। तो नाडीमर्ग और बिजबियाड़ा का कितना ही डिफरेंस था तो आप तो जानते ही हो। तो उन्होंने बोला नहीं, पड़ोसी हम वहाँ थे, यहाँ नहीं है। तो अब हम भी देखते हैं यहाँ के पंडित, यहाँ के लोकल्स आपकी कितनी हेल्प करेंगे। इतना रूड बिहेवियर हमारे साथ यहाँ पे हुआ।
You know, when you have round-table conferences with the Hurriyat people, with the people who are charged with terrorism, this affects the entire apparatus. The government has to give a very clear and firm message, which translates down the line, and every effort of the government, directly who are working under the government, and indirectly those who are not working under government, like judiciary also, all these people then work accordingly in the interest of the nationalism.
The Shopia judge in 2009 verdict also went on to ask the police how would they produce 17 prosecution witnesses who live in different parts of India if they can't produce a single accused who's already in their custody. A question that became the bedrock when the case was closed 11 years ago and was highlighted by the Jammu and Kashmir High Court while ordering that this case be reopened.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Let's go across to our guest now. We have with us RP Singh, national spokesperson of the BJP. Amit Raina, Kashmir activist, is with us. Arti Tikku, senior journalist, is also joining us. Sarfraz Wani is a lawyer who's joining us. Ashwini Handa is a former leader of the Congress. But I first and foremost want to go across to Majid Hyderi. Majid Hyderi, it's absolutely mind-boggling. 68 times the court calls for the accused number 1, and the government says we did not have adequate men in uniform to guard the accused. What's going on? You can't provide justice. How can justice be delivered if the prime accused in any case, forget if it's in Kashmir or it's in Kerala or in Kanyakumari or Karnataka, if you cannot produce the first accused after being called by a court 63 times, what use is the government? What kind of prosecution do we have?
Well, Madhav Saab, Kashmiri Pandits will get justice the day they return to their homeland with dignity and honor and live with harmony with the victimized in Kashmiri Muslims. See, the point is that
don't try to cover up the government's failure, please. Don't try to push the government's failure at someone else's doorstep.
You spoke about why this main accused, the mastermind, the POK terrorist who was in the police custody.
So you will not blame the administration, you will blame Kashmiri Pandits for that?
No. I am not blaming Kashmiri Pandits. I'm coming to the case only.
So why are you invoking them? What about the political leadership? What about the administration?
Yes, I am coming to that only, sir. Let me respond. See, the mastermind in the case or the key accused or the man who was arrested in this, he was kept in precious custody because for all these years, Abdullahs, Muftis and Ghulam Nabi Azad kept him alive. But recently, in BJP's hands, he got killed. You don't have any witness to this case now. The main accused has been killed very much when he was in police custody. So don't blame Muftis, Abdullahs or Azad.
Mr. Majid Hyderi, if he was taken to the court, there's every possibility he would have been convicted and convicted with death as well. There's every possibility of that. So do not play these mental acrobatics and these perversions of logic with us here today. Those who are supposed to do their job failed in their job and failed to do so and failed the 24 citizens. They were Hindus or Muslims, they were citizens of the state who the state administration willfully failed and regime after regime failed. Not just the Muftis, not just the Azads but also the Abdullahs.
Life not protected. What will you show to the Honorable Court? You don't have the evidence.
Sir, the circumstances of his death are immaterial to the justice delivery of this case.
BJP's failure.
Do not mix up the two. Do not mix up the two, Majid Hyderi, because what you are doing today, is failing the memory of those people who are crying out for justice. That's what you are doing today. Let me bring in Amit Raina on this. Amit Raina, I mean, this is absolutely shocking, not surprising to me. But, you know, even in a case like this, when there's such a gross violation of the judicial procedure, you have people who are ready to defend those who were in power at that time. Amit Raina.
From 1990 till 2006, 39 major massacres happened in Jammu and Kashmir. Massacres which included Sangrampura, Doda, Pahalgam, Chatti Singhpura, Vandhama, and not a single conviction has happened in any of those cases. Why? Because every time the state government, the governments of Mufti, Abdullahs and Congress went out and defended these terrorists. They made heroes out of them. And you see what happens when Yasin Malik is prosecuted. These are the parties who cry and weep over terrorists who are responsible for genocides of Kashmiri Pandits. So I wasn't expecting a justice out of them. What hurts me more is that when I went to Supreme Court asking them to reopen the cases, the Honorable Court goes and says, where will the Jammu and Kashmir police get witnesses and proofs? And they did not even ask Jammu and Kashmir police whether you will be able to prosecute. They had this man responsible for Nadimarg killing in police custody, and Supreme Court did not act upon it. So there is a massive system failure which has happened in Jammu and Kashmir. It is the political parties of Jammu and Kashmir who are responsible for it. You had DGP Huda right now giving sermons on what went wrong. He himself was DGP for 6 years. Why could he not produce the guilty in front of the court? He did not, because he was part of the system. So unfortunately, the system over the last 30 years has ensured that every person who has massacred, who is part of the crime, who is part of the genocide, goes scot-free, and that was happening till now. Now at least the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir has stepped in, reopened the Nadimarg case, and we see some hope. We see some hope of justice being delivered.
What will happen as far as justice now the High Court is looking into the matter is, of course, left to the High Court. But I want to also bring in, you mentioned Kashmir parties, but there's a small difference here. The Chief Minister of that time did not belong to a Kashmir party. He belonged to the Congress party. And we have one of his supporters sitting right here on this panel. Supporter of Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, Mr. Ashwini Handa. कश्मीर पार्टीज तो कश्मीर पार्टीज हैं, उनकी अपनी प्रायोरिटीज हैं. Being a member of a national political party like the Congress, which has, played such a major role in Mr. Azad's life, in his career, he has of course left the Congress party now. There was a Congress government incidentally at that time in the center as well. Despite all of that, what prevented Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad from taking a different line from the Azad, from the Abdullahs or the Muftis who existed in the Kashmir Valley? Or was he under pressure also, like Mr. Khoda?
माधव, मैं आपसे चाहूंगा कि हमारे कश्मीर की बात हो रही है तो आप मुझे थोड़ा सा ज्यादा टाइम देंगे. जो आप
टाइम है, बोलिए.
सवाल उठा रहे हैं, मैं एक एक सवाल का जवाब दूंगा. मैं पूछना चाहता हूं भारतीय जनता पार्टी जब जब सरकार के अंदर आती है तब सब कश्मीरी पंडितों का नरसंहार क्यों होता है? उस समय भी 2003 में भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी के अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी देश के अंदर प्रधानमंत्री थे, और आज जब 21
अरे प्रदेश में तो आपकी सरकार
कश्मीरी पंडितों का फिर से नरसंहार हुआ है, उनको फिर से वापस कश्मीर जाना पड़ा है.
इट वाज अ कांग्रेस पीडीपी कोalition. व्हाट आर यू टॉकिंग? You have no clue of history.
No.
Who was ruling the state at one of time? It was Congress PDP government.
You are wrong.
PDP government.
You are wrong.
Mufti Muhammad Saeed was the CM.
Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the president. Atal Bihari was the president. Advani was the home minister. And Mufti
Ashwini Handa, I don't want to waste time of the viewers with unnecessary debates. The fact is that 2002 elections happened in Jammu and Kashmir. I've covered those elections very closely. It was a PDP Congress that was formed for 3 years. After 3 years, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, with the help of PDP, continued for another 3 years, and then the Abdullahs came. So don't waste our time with this absolute nonsense. The state law and order machinery is under the state government, so do not come with that excuse. Mr. Azad and his party were very much part of the regime that supported the Muftis at that point of time when the incident happened. The questions we are asking today is why the prosecution failed when Mr. Azad was the chief minister and when the Abdullahs continued in power. Do you have any answer to that? कोई जवाब है आपके पास? गुलाम नबी आजाद ने इनके 24 विक्टिम्स को फेल क्यों किया? क्यों इंसाफ दिलाने में नाकामयाब रहे?
पंडितों को तो
आज जवाब दीजिए अश्विनी हांडा.
गुलाम नबी आजाद ने दिया.
क्यों नहीं इंसाफ दिला पाए 24 विक्टिम्स को?
गुलाम नबी आजाद साहब ने किया.
क्या किया था?
इनको रिहेबिलिटेट किया गया, इनको वजीफा लगाया गया, इनको.
अरे सर, कोर्ट केस में क्या किया? न्याय कहां दिलाया?
आप बताइए.
अरे न्याय कहां दिलाए? इंसाफ कहां दिलाए? विटनेसेस कहां प्रोड्यूस किए? प्राइम एक्यूज को तो प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर पाए आप.
तो
2009 में केस बंद होती है. गुलाम नबी आजाद की सरकार होती है उस वक्त.
जिस भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार के चलते इन पर नरसंहार हुआ, इनको तो प्रायश्चित करना चाहिए इस बात का. इनको अब याद आई है 19 साल के बाद.
Okay, you are referring to the BJP. Let RP Singh respond. RP Singh, you are responsible. Says Ashwini Handa, your government was there in the center at that time. The NDA 1 government, when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, you have to take responsibility. Please respond to Mr. Handa.
Well, I can't respond to a person who has no knowledge of the constitution of the country and doesn't know the federal structure and system and doesn't know that the law and order falls with the state. But that point itself, I mean, I'm accusing today that everyone was culpable of this crime because they didn't wanted the person who was a butcher of 24 Kashmiri Pandits to be prosecuted by court. Mr. Handa, did I interrupted you? I mean, stop. I mean, please. We are on Times Now debate. Let's behave like gentlemen. So issue is very clear that none of them wanted, and it's not only in this case. As my dear friend was saying that none of the cases have been opened, none of the cases have been followed up by the state. Bitta Karate, for example, I mean, they left it. I mean, he was roaming free. Now the other spokesperson saying, oh, this government killed he has all the sympathy for the Zia Mustafa, and then he was saying that the person who butchered 24 people was killed by NDA government and the Jammu Kashmir government now. I'm sorry, but if this is the state of the affair, I mean, if you have all the sympathy for a person who butchered, then God bless you, and the people who are going to the state. But let me tell you very categorically, none would be spared. Case by case, massacre by massacre, all will be reopened, and all those who are involved will be prosecuted and taken to the task.
Let me bring in now Sarfaraz Wani, who's also a lawyer. Sarfaraz Wani, I'm just going to read out to you what one of the victims, Mohan Bhatt, has mentioned. He's given in great detail what happened, how he tried to save the life of a toddler who was injured with a bullet, the difficulties he faced in that. But one of the points relating to the case that he mentions is quite shocking. He says that till 2008, no one came to meet us to take our statement, which means for 5 years, nobody went to take the statement of a person who is actually now a witness in this case. It also says that in 2008, few cops came to my house here. They said, you will have to come to Pulwama to record the court statement. Instead of providing us security or a vehicle, they asked us to go off on our own to Pulwama court. They will only provide security in court and outside, but not en route. And this is the time when Hurriyat members receive security. But the police cannot provide security for a witness to go from his home to the court. It's absolutely shocking, and it's a failure of Mr. Mufti Mohammed saying, God bless his soul, but this is a clear failing of his regime, sir.
No, the first point is nothing has changed today also.
What do you mean nothing has changed? My point is they failed to provide security to witnesses. They provide to investigate and interrogate people who are material witnesses to the court. What are you saying?
Give me my time. First, I want to make first my point, and then I will come to this part. Without going to the legal aspect of this, whether a court can recall its own order, because this is a very exceptional order. This order is like a court has recalled its own order and used powers under 482 CRPC. The question is, there are a number of authorities on it that a court cannot recall its own order only in exceptional circumstances when there is an arithmetical error or something.
Sir, legally they can. It's happened before. We all know the precedent. But simple, is this a case of miscarriage of justice or not, Mr. Wani?
No.
Let's not beat around the bush. Is it case of miscarriage of justice in your view or not?
Let me come.
There's another simple in the butcher of the...
How will this debate go? You are not allowing me to speak.
My point is, this is a very exceptional order and the court has passed. The question is, why is our debate restricted today? You see in Kunan Poshpara similar orders were passed by the district court, and why that order was stayed by the High Court.
Sir, this is a development that has just happened. I'll tell you why we are debating it.
The question is of double standards.
One second, Mr. Wani, the problem is this. The problem is this, nobody is interested in your water boundary. Nobody is interested in your water boundary, Mr. Wani. Please listen to me as to why we are debating the story. You don't know the reasons why? I'll explain to you why. The reasons are very simple.
I'm telling you why.
This is a case. One second, Mr. Wani. You've asked a question. Why are we debating this and not other cases which have been debated multiple times in the past? In this particular case, the High Court order came out last week. We have gone to the victims. We have spoken to them. We have investigated the entire court orders. They are all there for you to see. And if you do not believe that this is a case of miscarriage of justice, then I don't know what will make you believe it's a case of miscarriage of justice.
On your part, I am saying heads must roll. But question is, what has changed since 2014 also? Where are fair investigations being done by police? Where are fair trials being concluded by the police since 2014? Where are challans being produced on time before the court? What has changed since 2014? We are creating a narrative that look, everything is okay since BJP came to power in Kashmir.
Nobody is saying that. We are saying give justice to the victims who did not get it. That's all we are saying. Do you agree with that or not?
Heads must roll. Hold them accountable for all this. But hold BJP also accountable for what they are doing here.
Well, BJP will, you can certainly hold the BJP account. I have absolutely no problem. But these victims who have been in such gross violation of the principles of law, of natural justice of this country, they certainly deserve justice. Let me bring in fact, Aarti Tikku on that. Aarti Tikku, nothing has changed. The previous speaker, Mr. Wani, says this is one case that we are cherry picking. That's what he would have us believe. Please respond to him as to why you feel that this is such a gross violation of the justice that these 24 victims so badly deserved.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising that Mr. Wani would say that nothing has changed, because he still gets to be on Indian news channels, and he still gets to do this obfuscation, this denialism of genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. He still gets to say the same nonsense and the fabrication of lies that they've been peddling for last 30 years. So yeah, nothing has changed on that front, absolutely. But the fact today is that I stand vindicated. In fact, every single day I get vindicated because I've been talking about the complicity of the Indian state as well in the massacres of Kashmiri Hindus. So I'm very glad that J&K High Court, the institutions of India today, finally, the judiciary, even though Supreme Court did disappoint us badly and we were hurt, but finally an institution has gotten up and is reopening these issues, reopening these cases to bring a closure and to bring justice. So I would give all kudos to J&K High Court. The other point I want to mention here is, yes, that all the political parties, whether it's National Conference, PDP, or the Congress Party, or even the BJP, they have to share responsibility and they have to be held accountable for whatever happened to Kashmiri Hindus in the last 30 years, starting in 1989-90.
There's no doubt about that.
They have to show to the rest of India. Indian citizens are going to ask these questions and they must answer.
Absolutely.
Who are the people responsible for the massacres and genocide of Kashmiri Hindus?
Absolutely.
The point is that National Conference, PDP and Congress, who were ruling in Jammu and Kashmir state, they were complicit in all these.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. And let's read out some of those statements. Let's tell our viewers why we are saying so. Let's tell our viewers why. Aarti Tikku, please hold on to your thoughts. Majid Hyderi, if statements come out calling local terrorists sons of the soil, if a terrorist kills a civilian, he is wrong. When an official kills a civilian in the country that is shielded, repeatedly this kind of tendency to protect terrorists is manifested in the actions of the government, and it is also manifested in the statement coming in from the same individual I referred to, Mohan Bhatt. He says the healing touch policy of the then PDP regime of Mufti Muhammad Saeed and Mehbooba Mufti was only to rehabilitate terrorists, but became a killing touch policy for Kashmiri Hindus. That's what it was in reality, according to him, and he's a victim.
Respected sir and worthy Aarti Tikku Sahiba, what justice can be delivered in the Nadimarg massacre case when the main accused, the mastermind in the case, has just recently got killed in police custody? I mean, you are making mockery of hope. Please don't mislead our Pandit community.
Majid Hyderi, please. It is so amazing how you want to shift the goalposts. It's really amazing. Those who did not take witnesses for 6 years to courts are all right. Those who did not take him 63 times to court are correct. But because he died in police custody, that is wrong. Those who did not, in fact, even try to build up a prosecution, build such a weak prosecution that it fell in the court, they are correct. Prosecutors are all right according to you.
But he got killed in BJP.
What about the prosecutors, Majid Hyderi? What about the prosecutors in the trial court? What did they do? Tell me. What did the prosecutors do? Did they build a strong case? Did they build a strong case? Yes or no?
It's not about strong case.
Of course it is about a strong case. The job of the prosecution is to fight the case strongly.
It is very simple.
To make sure that the accused are brought to justice and are convicted. If they fail so miserably in their job, they will be questioned, sir.
BJP got that hope. See, BJP has been witness to how this hope got killed.
Sir, the BJP was not even in power in Jammu and Kashmir. They've had no say till 2014.
Don't mislead them. BJP is doing nothing for Kashmiri Pandits. Why didn't BJP order?
Sir, you can question the BJP and what they have done for Kashmiri Pandits over the last few years. My question is the miscarriage of justice in this entire case, sir. Why are you not willing to come to terms with that, Majid Hyderi? After the court order after court order is repeatedly slamming the then regime, you still don't want to open your eyes up? This is the hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen. This is the hypocrisy before your eyes. Let me give, okay, once again, questions on the BJP. I'm coming to you, Amit Raina, but RP Singh. RP Singh, it is the BJP that has failed Kashmiri Pandits, not any other regime. Other regimes have been very good. They have done justice, as we can clearly see in this case.
How this case has reopened? No, Madhav, ask this legal guy from Kashmir, how this case has been reopened is only because the state government has taken initiative in this. And then again
there
saying
is no state.
Majid Hyderi saying that the person died because of the in 2021. Sir, justice will be given. Don't bother. Yasin Malik, Bitta Karate, all will be taken to task. None is going to be spared. And again, we will ensure that every person who was involved in any sort of massacre or who was culpable of those murders should be taken to task. Mind my word. Mark my word.
Why should Kashmiri Pandit beg for justice? Why don't you deliver justice? Why don't you order a probe? Stop befooling the Pandit community, please.
Well, that's exactly what the High Court has done, sir.
You have been it was government whom you were sympathetic toward, who didn't allow this man to come to the court. After the 63 times, he was asked to be presented to the court.
This would not have been the condition. It's your
for that,
party.
BJP is responsible, not your friends. Neither Mr. Mufti, neither Mr. Azad.
Okay, let me come in now. Ashwini Handa. Ashwini Handa, as a supporter of Ghulam Nabi Azad, will you apologize to Kashmiri Pandits for failing them?
For the killer, butcherer.
1 second, RP Singh, let me just come in over here. Ashwini Handa, will you apologize to Kashmiri Pandits for failing them today? As a supporter of Mr. Azad, क्या आप उनसे माफी मांगेंगे पैनल पे जो कश्मीरी पंडित हैं?
माफी तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को मांगनी चाहिए।
क्यों सर, आपके मुख्यमंत्री थे, आप गुलाम नबी आजाद के समर्थक हैं, आपको माफी मांगनी चाहिए सर।
जख्म पे तो
जो कोर्ट के ऑब्जर्वेशंस हैं, दे आर वेरी स्केथिंग ऑन द देन रेजिम।
अगर किसी ने कश्मीरी पंडितों
प्रोसिक्यूशन पूरी तरह नाकामयाब रही, फेलियर रही सर, फेलियर।
अगर उनको
जो विटनेसेस है मामले में उनसे 8 साल तक 6 साल तक कोई पूछताछ तक नहीं हुई।
मिला है तो वो गुलाम नबी आजाद साहब ने दिया है।
अच्छा,
रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर बनाया है तो गुलाम नबी आजाद साहब ने बनाया है।
रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर से न्याय नहीं मिलेगा सर, रहने की जगह जरूर मिली होगी लेकिन न्याय नहीं मिला होगा उन्हें। आई वांट मिस्टर रायना टू कम इन नाउ। Amit Raina, your response to Ashwini Handa.
Yes, I will tell you another gem. I will tell you another gem of Ghulam Nabi Azad. Bitta Karade caught bail in 2008. The judge, Justice Wani, says, I have never seen state prosecution doing such a pathetic work that I have to give a bail to a person whom I know is guilty, who was the Chief Minister, Ghulam Nabi Azad. Now coming back to the mindset people like Majid Hyderi and Mahbooba Mufti have. Majid Hyderi is not concerned about 24 innocent Kashmiri Pandits killed. He is more bothered about a terrorist Pakistani Zia. How was he killed? Mahbooba Mufti goes and threatens Kashmiri Pandit victims saying, we are not going to help you and let me see how people of Jammu are going to help you. That's the mindset they have. That is exactly the way a Dhimmi is treated in an Islamic state. That is an unfortunate truth of the whole thing, that you are being treated as a Dhimmi. Now, where state and judiciary have failed and they can still correct themselves, they need to immediately form an SIT, fast track the cases and deliver justice. We need a closure. How long are you going to keep our wounds open? Please allow us to live a normal life. Please give us a sense of closure that neither the state seems to be interested, neither the judiciary seems to be interested. All they seem to be interested in politics. So my request to the judiciary as well as executive and RP Singh, who is a good friend of Kashmiri Pandit community, please force your party, please force your government to form an SIT, fast track cases and give us justice and sense of closure.
All right, Sarfaraz Wani, your response to Amit Raina. There needs to be an urgent SIT to give a sense of closure to Kashmiri Pandits. Quick response to that.
Madhav, yes, justice needs to be served to all the sides. Like this, in this case, prosecution moved an application in the High Court after 10 long years. I will say, move application in all the cases like Kunal Poshpura, move application in all the cases where FIRs were lodged against the police and police.
Okay, more whataboutery.
More whataboutery. Every case, and then do justice.
Okay,
do justice
more whataboutery.
Every case.
Every case needs closure. Quick closing comment from Aarti Tikku. Quick comment. 30 seconds, please. You're almost out of time.
I just want to say this, that lot of commissions and lot of investigations did happen in some of the cases that Mr. Bani is referring to. There hasn't been any commission, there has been no tribunal, there has been no investigation whatsoever about the massacres and genocide that was committed against Kashmiri Hindus. So it's very shameful for these people to come on Indian news channels and then do what they've been doing for the last 30 years, which is denialism. What we really should be asking is that who are the people within the Indian state who've been protecting and shielding murderers, all the Islamists, all the terrorists backed by Pakistan,
Okay.
who all benefited
Well,
from
who
the
has been
massacres?
backing them? Who has been backing them? Aarti Tikku, I think, is there for all to see. What really is the justice that has been given to people? 24 people were killed. In any other part of the world or any other part of the country, if such an incident had happened, would such a mockery of a trial have been acceptable to the public at large? Would the government not have been held accountable any other part of the world, any other democracy in the world? Those are some questions that we as citizens need to ask those leaders who are in power at that point of time. And if justice has not been done, how quickly, how soon can it be done in such a case? I leave our viewers with those questions. I'd like to thank R.P. Singh, Amit Raina, Aarti Tikku, Sarfaraz Wani, Majid Hyderi and Ashwini Handa for joining us on debate number 1.